If you've ever wondered what the actual day of a winemaker looks like, it is not just walking along the vineyard sipping Chardonnay, but there are so many things that go behind what it takes to make a great glass of Chardonnay. My name is Josh Baldovino, and I'm the marketing manager here at Lohr. So let's go inside and meet our white winemaker.
I am Kristin Barnhisel, winemaker for white wines for Lohr Vineyards Wines. I'm here in Greenfield, California, in the heart of Arroyo Seco in Monterey County. Average day at this point in the year, we are late May, early June. I'm kind of usually looking at tasting because the palate is really fresh in the morning, and I want to look today at the October night Chardonnay and start doing those blending trials because in a couple weeks we'll want to pump that out to tank for this year. We have bottling coming up in about a month, and so we want to get that into tank and start working with it to make it perfect for the bottling. And then actually to get out to the cellar in the afternoon, I'll look at actually chalking the barrels and seeing each individual barrel and make sure it's good and can go to the blend. So it's a good day here in Arroyo Seco. Let's go ahead and add to the 426s,
okay,
if we can.
Yeah.
We have this discussion daily. Mm-hmm. What we do with this information, the free sulfur is a measurement that we use to keep the wine fresh. Mm-hmm. It prevents it from oxidation, mm-hmm. so tired flavors. So we're constantly checking those barrels mm-hmm. every month to make sure that those sulfur levels and all the analysis is really good and in good condition. So it's the off-season work that not many people see or know about. It's the daily conversation. Yeah. What do we add to this or that? This number came in. And now that we're pumping out Riverstone, a lot more of this discussion is the tank mixed? That Riverstone is uniform and even. Mm-hmm. So we make sure that happens before we put it in smaller tanks and top those up.
So the two machines that you use the most are which one?
The Astoria and then the Foss, which is on the other side of this workbench. And the Astoria we're using to check the free sulfur levels on tanks and barrels. Then we have the Foss, which will run basically all of our samples on this, and it'll give us TA, alcohol, VA, malic, residual sugar, and color data.
What is that process? Like, how many do you normally have, and then that is now what in relation to that?
So for this tasting, it was about 81 samples that Genevieve and the crew sampled very nicely to prepare labels and actually sample. What we're taking is the best of the best for Vineyard Series. So of those 110 lots that we had, we tasted through all of them. And at this point, we tasted in December. We did a pre-tasting in January, and then a vintage tasting with the family in February. So those are early indicators, and now we've kind of confirmed those best of the best lots. And that's what we look at to call out and then look for Arroyo Vista and October night blending. We had 81 different samples, and the reason why we have few lots that we pulled out, but the reason why we have so many samples is we sample by each barrel type. So we have, one lot will have maybe 4 different barrel types, which means a 2015 barrel, a 2016 barrel, maybe a 2019, 2020 barrel.
What is the year of a barrel?
That's the year that the barrel was made. With the most impact being the first year. So the 2021 French barrels for October night would have the most impact. And then as we get to the 2020s, they'd probably have about somewhere around 50% of the impact of a new barrel. And then about 25%. Yeah, the older barrels you get less and less.
So in context,
yeah.
You have how many blocks again?
About 110 that we look at each year.
And then how many different barrel years?
We are back to 2016 barrels, so 5 years.
So 5 years. And the oak origin is also different.
The oak origin is also different.
And how many variations are those in there?
For Riverstone, we have 3 different flavors.
Okay.
We have American oak, which is the main oak for Riverstone. I would say about 70% of Riverstone is American oak. You get French oak, that's really vanilla and baking spices and that mocha flavor. And then you get something in between that's Hungarian oak. So it's like 70%, 15%, and 15% of those 3 oak types for Riverstone. And then what we're looking at for Arroyo Vista and October night is exclusively French oak. So in that case, we have all French oak from a few different forests, but we use about 6 or 7 different coopers and multiple flavors within each cooper as well. So all of those to say the barrels are the spice rack, and I would say generally we winemakers like our spice rack. we like complexity. It's another way we build complexity in the blend, is different flavor profiles and nuances.
Why is our oak and barrel program impressive compared to, say, most other wineries?
Because I think 2 things. I think the quality of oak that we choose each year is just top notch. We actually do taste every year and do trials every year to consistently make sure that the oak is matching the wine. Because if you have some oak that is really too strong or too toasted, you might imagine, that it would really show on something that's as delicate as Chardonnay. So you do want something that really lifts the fruit and integrates the wine and gives us great texture. That's a constant work in progress. Every year we're doing a cooper trial. Every year we're choosing slightly new flavors, or we like a little less of this and a little more of that, to really make sure to really optimize our Chardonnay flavor profile. So that's really unique, and actually just barrel fermentation in general. At our scale, we're making 500,000 cases of Riverstone Chardonnay, and then about 12,000 cases of Arroyo Vista, 6,000 cases of October Night, and at those levels with French oak, I guess it's an impressive program to put in place. We aren't taking any shortcuts. We have 26,000 barrels that we ferment, maybe 21,000 that we store here during aging process, and those are by hand, dropped down, stirred by hand every week, and then topped every 3 weeks. It's just there are very few wineries that have that commitment to a barrel program at our scale.
I just think
it's like complexity. Yeah, well,
yeah.
There's that.
Because not even the blend and the blocks, but it's like also how
it's like
pressed.
how yeah, you can just keep a tracking list of how things are, the variables.
Yeah. I'm just laughing now.
Yeah. So the whole cluster pressing is one thing that retains freshness and acidity. This was destemmed and sorted also a little bit into bins. I will say through the destemming process, we pulled out more of the October Night aromatics from the skins. So a little bit more of that gardenia and ripe floral component went into the destem, because it was a little bit more exposure to those skins.
So these samples are from barrels right now.
These are samples from barrels that have been there since October, early November, and we'll now pump those out in early or mid-June for mid-July bottling.
Okay.
So that's kind of the process that we look at in terms of barrel aging, and then giving it some time because we want it to clarify, and then we're really prepping for bottling at that point and putting any final touches on it.
Okay.
And I'll go through and actually with a thief and check each barrel and make sure that they're good and clean. Basically, we're looking for just cleanliness to make sure something didn't miss a sulfur, or maybe it's a little bit funky. We just make sure that each barrel for these wines is perfect. It's a nice straw. So basically, and I'll show you downstairs actively, but you can just place this in the barrel, and by capillary action, it just it goes up the tube. You can fill the tube, stop it, and just pour it into a glass. It's a thief, they call that. It's a nice way to just steal a little bit of wine from the barrel. So now we're looking at, just for something different, I'm going to go back to a 2016 for something super fresh on this one. We have a 16, a 19, a 20, and obviously 21 barrel. So that's where we kind of do a 16 on the ON1. Yeah, for a different flavor is the Cadaze. It's definitely a toastier barrel. Has traditionally been some part of October Night. It really gives you, it's toasted, so it's almost like a roasted coffee or dark chocolate kind of flavor. And so we're talking with the orange, the ripe orange flavor. And again, that goes pretty well. We don't want too much for that toasted flavor, but that's a good start.
And you're saying these French names like Cadaze, are these just like different barrel producers?
These are different barrel producers. Yeah, these are different coopers. So we have like Louis Latour and Dargaud et Jaigle, Francois Frère, Doreau, Cadet. Those are all different coopers. And then they pull from, we've kind of fine-tuned at this point pretty much the forests that they work with, and now just fine-tuning how they toast the barrels. I think those would be our options that we look at each year for our cooper trials. It's just making sure that, yeah. We have had coopers, we just want to make sure they're consistently doing well. We have had coopers that are like, they were doing well and then the style shifts or their sources shift, and we just have to say, okay, a little bit, as we say on the down elevator, like, okay, a little bit less of that and a little bit more of this sometimes, because this whatever has changed. And at least we'll see that. And that's just more just quality control, just kind of making sure that we're still getting the barrels that we think we're getting. So we do look at that. Tasting notes, how I approach it usually is looking at the color, first of all. Again, all of these look like really good Chardonnay color. If there were anything darker, I'd be like, oh, okay, that's a little medium straw yellow. But yeah, we're kind of looking really good color on all of these. And so that's the kind of the first thing. But yeah, and then just smell for aromas. But I kind of compartmentalize. I've learned by the yes, from UC Davis on the right hand side is the aroma wheel. Mm-hmm. So I tend to compartmentalize by fruit components, barrel components, any malolactic kind of components. What we start with this wine is kind of looking at the citrus and orange aspect and gardenia.
So for each of these samples that's in front of you,
yeah,
you're basically going through is it the 4 or the 5 S's of tasting wine?
Is there fruit in the palate, which hopefully there is. Is it fresh acidity? But there's also kind of another component that is it thick or thin? So is it, I don't know, thick like a sauce, or is it thin like water? Those kinds of things just in general. And then finally, do you like the finish? Is it something that you want to take another sip of? I look for something in the palate that's really linear, that's really like this, it's even across the palate. You don't want something that's like, oh, that's great, and then it's like really bitter like coffee. Like in the mid, like, oh, okay, and then that bitterness kind of stays with you. And also like acidity, if it's really just like a Sauv Blanc, if it's really tart or something, yeah, really well balanced in that way.
I know that there's trade secrets, right? As we're going through the process of everything, you could just tell them exactly what you do, but you still can't actually mix the variables in the same way. Like, there's 100 different things. So
There really is. Yeah.
Just tell everybody everything, and
because I have a different palate than you have. Yeah. That people can smell things differently, or some people have like a different sensitivity. They're like, oh, that's really bitter for me, and it's not bitter for somebody else. So it really depends on who's tasting it, and that's why we try to create something that's like really pleasing to a lot of people, and you don't know. We try to do competitive tasting so that we know what we're putting out there for our customers. Yeah,
Like
exactly.
maybe
Like the honey or daffodils as a flavor. Or like the orange rind or something like that I found like, oh yeah, that's actually really good. But yeah, I could see that. Yeah, everybody has a sensitivity, or they had, sometimes you'll find a childhood experience that brings something forward. Yeah.
But how are you then figuring out what percentage of each goes into the final blend?
That's where the intuition comes in. This part is kind of some of the creative part where you that's when I just look at my notes and I say, okay, this had a little bit, just to throw something out, more daffodil, or a little bit Meyer lemon as opposed to ripe orange. Something like that. It offers a little bit of layers. And that's where I say that melds really well. Or white peach side. You just kind of see like intuitively like, okay, maybe I want something on the lighter side, and then maybe on the a little bit riper side that would be an apricot or peach.
So you have your recipe card or your flavor profile, right?
Flavor profile, yeah.
For each
exactly.
for each major wine.
Yes.
And then you try and get as close to it as possible, making the best product from each of the best of what you have.
Yes.
And then you're making, hey, this could be, 5 percentages or 5 different recipes that I think would make the one blend, and then your team will make
right
5 final
trial
blends, and then you're now sampling those blends, right? I'm assuming.
Yes, yes, and then we do A, B, C, D, E, and try those out, and then at that point, it's the best of what we've tried.
So how many
look at all
blends do you
those.
make? Like of October night, so you sampled 100 things.
Yes,
On like phase 1 of let's try these amount of recipes, how many is that?
usually 3 or 4, I would say. Yeah, different recipes, and that might be, you know, some wine. Again, you, as I said, you never know till you taste it. So that might be something that is like, okay, this is good. It's got a little too much acid. It's good. It's got a little too much oak. You know, that kind of thing. And then we can kind of tweak and say, like, you know, might leave a little lift in the aromatics. You know, it could use 2% more of X if we have it. It's like taking copious notes.
Yeah.
And then I'm using those notes and saying, oh, okay, last time I got yellow floral on the GB12, and you know, that's so I can pull that and say, yeah, that'll probably be good mix with this, or that's what gives me the lexicon or the ideas to say, oh, this is, you can say this wine is great. Sometimes it's this one is great. And it's fresh, but it needs some texture, and you can say, oh, I made a note that this wine is rich or thick. And you can say, okay, let's add a couple percent of that. Moving this over, but yes, all these across the top.
Wait,
of
so
all the different
there's-
barrel types.
So then there's different lots, and the lots will also be in multiple different barrel
Right,
types, just
right.
for the flavor profile that you're trying to blend together.
Right.
And then
right.
you make a combination of all of these
Yes.
into.
Into what we're tasting today. Yeah. And then even each of these barrel types, you know, Steve and I are thumbs up or thumbs down, like, okay, every barrel type is good. Okay, all of that lot goes in. But there were some lots that we tasted and we're like, okay, we really like the 2017 barrel and we like the new barrel, but like the other two did not make the cut. So we also make that kind of differentiation too. So yeah, and this is what I was working on last night. This is the Riverstone pump out. Proportionally we have the lot and then
Pump out this amount of
a
this
third.
many of
We're
these.
doing a third each, so a third of each barrel type for every lot that we pump out. Those. that's Riverstone.
So if you just enjoyed this segment, I invite you to watch our other segments that are all linked down below. We'll dive into some of the other portions of what it takes to craft a great bottle of Chardonnay. So we'll dive into the vineyards, in the lab, and even into the barrel room so you can really understand the glass of Chardonnay that you're enjoying. All of those videos will be linked down below. I will see you on the next one. Cheers.